I splurged the old man's $200,000.
After my husband's funeral, just as everyone was feeling a bit relieved, Alex Ford's calm voice echoed throughout the venue. All the relatives gathered there froze. All eyes were directed at Alex. What do you mean? Though everyone knew Alex was careless with money, the amount was shockingly large.
You know, I've been eyeing this new car for a while. It was hard to get, and I had to wait 3 months after ordering. I finally got it. Good thing the old geezer kicked the bucket.
Alex was holding the ATM card into which his father's life insurance money had been deposited, laughing uproariously as if flaunting them. At first I was filled with anger, but upon seeing the card in his hands, laughter welled up from the pit of my stomach. That's hilarious. Really, it's good that he's such a stupid son. I smirked to myself on the spot. My name is Megan Ford. I am a 50-year-old housewife working part-time at a flower shop. I live with my husband, Robert Ford, and his stepson, Alex. My husband was married once before he married me, and Alex was a child from that marriage. Unfortunately, I couldn't have children of my own, so I resolved to treat Alex as my own true son. When I first met Alex, he was just 5 years old. At first, he was reluctant to open up to me, but after living together for a year, he warmed up to me and called me Mom for the first time. A day I'll never forget. However, as Alex grew up and entered puberty, he began to avoid my husband and me. Like any family, I accepted it with a big heart, but Alex's rebellious phase didn't end quickly. In fact, as he entered high school, he became known for hanging out with notorious delinquents, and quickly became jaded. The tender Alex who first called me Mom was nowhere to be seen, and he turned into a foolish son who roamed around late at night and was frequently picked up by the police, causing his father to explode in anger. Hoping to remedy the situation, my husband and I tried to get him into a prestigious private university so he could get a decent job. But it ended disastrously, and he ended up at a so-called lower-tier university. Even if it was a lower-tier university, I believed that if he put in the effort, he could still be hired in a proper graduate position. But he didn't change even in college. His range of activities expanded, and he became addicted to slots, poker, and other forms of gambling, leaving us helpless. This foolish son might leave home to work in a few years, I had hoped. But that was naive. Alex messed up so much at university that he was quickly forced to repeat a year. Just a sophomore, and already held back. It was frustrating to think how many more years he would spend at university. Misfortunes tend to pile up, and on the day Alex's repeat year was confirmed, my husband collapsed at work. I was shocked when I received the call. I was in the middle of my shift at the flower shop and rushed to the hospital. My husband was undergoing treatment, and I had to wait aimlessly for hours. I had contacted Alex, so I thought he would arrive soon, but he didn't show up at all. Eventually, the doctor came to me and explained my husband's condition.
We managed to save him, but your husband has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It's terminal.
That can't be. The word terminal cancer from the doctor's mouth left me speechless. We have been fortunate to have no health issues until now, but to hear terminal cancer out of the blue? The doctor then began discussing future treatments. We could either admit him to the hospital to try to prolong his life a little with treatment, or choose palliative care to spend his remaining days at home. I wanted to stay with my husband as long as possible, but treatment would involve pain. I couldn't strongly recommend it. The decision would be up to him. After a while, my husband woke up and received the same explanation from the doctor. He blinked for a moment, desperately trying to accept the misfortune that had befallen him, then finally said,
I want to go home. I want to spend my remaining time quietly with Megan.
Somehow I had expected him to say that. It was hard, but I agreed to go home with him. He must be suffering more than me. That day we ate in silence, and my husband spent a lot of time just looking out the window. Alex didn't come home that day, and the next morning he returned home hungover.
Ugh, my head hurts. Isn't there any food?
Alex, you're late. What were you doing yesterday? I called you so many times. I was furious that Alex had come home so late without worrying about his father in a critical condition. Moreover, the first thing he did upon returning wasn't to worry about his father, but to care about his own meal. He really is a foolish son. This is just too sad for my husband.
A call? Oh, about the old man? So when's he gonna kick the bucket?
Alex! I scolded Alex harshly for using the word kick the bucket towards his father. Unthinkable. How could he say such a thing now? My husband was in the room sleeping, but our conversation might not be unheard. I felt dizzy thinking that he might have already woken up and heard Alex's heartless remark.
What's up? Getting all worked up. It's just an illness. Not his fault he didn't notice it earlier.
Pancreatic cancer is something that goes unnoticed until it progresses. How about showing a little compassion? And don't you dare say anything unnecessary in front of your father.
Yeah. I'll be careful.
Alex's casual response showed that my warnings went in one ear and out the other. I sighed deeply. My husband is his only real family, after all. My husband wasn't particularly strict with Alex, yet I can't understand why Alex resents him so much. Well, to Alex, it's probably not just my husband he finds annoying, but me as well. Anyway, he hates being told what to do by adults. For him, the happiest times are when he's messing around with his good-for-nothing friends. I'm concerned about Alex's future, but right now, the time left with my husband is more important. To live without regrets for the rest of my life, I've been telling myself to cherish every day with my husband. I'll worry about Alex later. Of course, my husband quit his job and ended up staying at home all day. We couldn't afford to not make ends meet, so I continued my part-time job but asked for reduced hours to spend as much time as possible with my husband. Thinking that staying cooped up in the house all the time would be suffocating, I occasionally took my husband out in his wheelchair for walks along the nearby riverbank. My husband quickly became frail and looked visibly ill, but he was still my beloved husband.
Megan, thank you. I know it must have been tough dealing with Alex and putting up with my whims. I'm grateful.
Oh, stop it. I'm just doing what any wife would naturally do. Hearing my usually reticent husband say that while looking at the river nearly brought me to tears.
Still, I was happy. I know Alex is a handful, but I'll do anything I can.
Honey. My husband probably felt bad that by passing away first, he would be leaving Alex for me to deal with. As for me, Alex is as good as my own son, so I don't feel burdened, but I understood the feeling of worrying about our selfish son. After that, we continued our walk in silence and went home.
Where were you two? Walking around even with terminal cancer? Are you okay? Make me some food quickly.
Even though there were days he didn't come home, the rare times he did come home at a reasonable hour, this was his attitude. Isn't it embarrassing for a college student to still depend on his parents to make food? If he wanted to eat, he should make it himself. While I silently resented him, I didn't want to raise my voice in front of my husband and started cooking quietly. From that day, my husband stayed locked in the bedroom, seemingly working on something desperately. When I peeked into the room occasionally, he was busy writing something. Perhaps he was writing letters to old friends. I closed the door quietly to not disturb him. 3 months later, my husband passed away. Though I was prepared, I couldn't believe that he had died just a few months after being diagnosed, and I couldn't accept it. During my grief, I prepared for my husband's funeral. I must have looked like a ghost with a pale face to those around me. I had never imagined I'd be so shocked to lose him. Even then, Alex's brazen attitude did not change. When my husband died, he said,
Finally kicked the bucket, huh? Always nagging me like an annoying aunt, saying this and that isn't allowed. Couldn't even get games. Was left behind by my classmates. Couldn't go on trips. That old man was such a nuisance.
What a thing to say about his father who had just died. Though I was devastated by despair, my anger towards Alex grew. Alex, how can you say such a thing? That's so sad for your father. He forbade those things because he wanted you to grow up to be a decent person. Apologize right now.
Apologize? To a dead man? How can I do such a nonsensical thing?
Alex spat out those words with a rough tone. I felt profoundly sad. From then on, Alex showed no signs of grief over his father's death and watched me prepare for the funeral with a cold eye. During the funeral, Alex seemed distracted as he looked at his father's portrait. When people who came to the funeral greeted me and Alex, he just casually responded with,
Yeah,
which surprised the visitors. I wished he would behave properly, at least while others were watching, but my hopes were dashed, and it was painful to see the stares directed at Alex.
Megan, thank you for your hard work. It must have been tough.
After getting through the wake and the funeral, I finally took a breath. The relatives seemed tired, but they offered me words of comfort. I hugged each one of them, expressing my gratitude. Then, as we gathered in a different room at the funeral venue, lunch boxes were distributed, and we took a lunch break. The heavy atmosphere seemed to lighten up a bit with lunch, and everyone started sharing their memories of my husband. Among them, one person sat down on a chair with a particularly loud sigh. It was Alex. His attitude, inappropriate for the occasion, drew everyone's gaze to him. "Alex, please behave a little better."
Shut up. I'm tired. Besides, now that the troublesome part is over, let me soak in it. I was just starting to feel good.
I looked at Alex, who was still out of place, as if he were an incomprehensible creature. "Feeling good?"
Yeah, I am.
As Alex stretched and yawned, the next words he said left me speechless.
I splurged the old man's $200,000.
After the funeral of my husband ended, just as everyone was feeling a bit relieved, Alex's calm voice echoed throughout the venue. The relatives gathered there froze. All eyes were directed at Alex. "What do you mean by $200,000? Though everyone knew Alex was careless with money, the amount was shockingly large.
You know, I've been eyeing this new car for a while. It was hard to get, and I had to wait 3 months after ordering. Finally got it. Good thing the old geezer kicked the bucket."
Alex was holding the ATM card into which his father's life insurance money had been deposited, laughing uproariously as if flaunting it. 3 months ago, right when my husband was diagnosed with cancer. Since then, Alex had decided to splurge his father's money. At first I was filled with anger, but upon seeing the ATM card in Alex's hands, laughter welled up from the pit of my stomach. "Sorry for you." Really, it's good that he's such a foolish son. I smirked to myself on the spot. "You bought the new car on loan, didn't you?"
Yeah, that's right. I knew the life insurance money would be deposited here, so I signed the contract in advance. It's good he kicked the bucket. Plus, I had some fun with the old man's credit card, too. The payment hasn't been processed yet, but it should be fine with the insurance money, right? Aren't I smart?
Indeed, Alex had already stolen his father's credit card before he passed away and had been using it for fun. He must have guessed that his father wouldn't last long and planned for the credit card payments to be covered after his father's death. As Alex expected, his father passed away shortly after he started using the credit card. Everything went according to Alex's plan. He was constantly laughing loudly, delighted to have access to free money. However, I was looking at the ATM card that Alex was holding. That card belonged to our joint account, which we used for saving up living expenses. Alex knew this and had stolen the card. Indeed, the life insurance money had been deposited into that account the day before yesterday. But Alex was unaware of one crucial fact. Unfortunately, the life insurance money hasn't been deposited into that account.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Thinking that I had suddenly said something ridiculous, Alex snorted and flipped through the joint account's passbook. He showed me the entry with the date from the day before yesterday and the amount of the insurance money printed on it.
Look, the insurance money has been properly deposited. Are you blind?
Alex taunted me with a mocking tone, but I already knew that the insurance money had been recorded in the passbook. After all, I was the one who processed the insurance claim, so there was no way I could forget, despite being busy with my husband's passing. I know without looking, but unfortunately that money is no longer in the account.
What?
As expected, Alex was completely shocked, his mouth agape.
No way, that can't be. It's printed right here.
Yes, it was in that account until the day before yesterday, but yesterday I transferred the insurance money to another account.
Transferred? What?
Shocked, Alex looked at the notice in his hand again. Indeed, it only mentioned that the insurance money had been deposited the day before yesterday. That was expected. I had not updated the passbook when I moved the money from that account to another yesterday. It was good that I moved the insurance money early, anticipating that Alex, who is careless with money, might target his father's insurance. Just as I expected, Alex had fallen right into the trap.
No, that's a lie. The insurance money should definitely be in this account.
If you think it's a lie, go and update the passbook at the bank right now. I think you'll find that what I'm saying is correct.
What?
Alex seemed to realize that what I was saying was true, given my confident tone.
Why would you do something like this?
Huh? That's what I want to say to you. Why would you think to steal your father's hard-earned money?
The old man always caused me trouble. The least he could do is repay me in the end.
Alex kicked the chair next to him with a thud, and the relatives were speechless, taken aback by his behavior. I sighed and stared at Alex. It was time for Alex to face the consequences of his long-held grudges. Trouble? Who's to trouble here? Do you have any idea how much your father and I worried about you? Even with the money for your education, we both worked desperately to earn that. Yet you just messed around in college. What a foolish son.
Shut up.
Alex was furious, and so was I. The relatives could only watch our showdown from a distance, unable to do anything but wait for the outcome. Oh, by the way, you mentioned earlier that you used your father's credit card, didn't you?
So what if I did?
You'll be paying for all of that money.
What?
Didn't you know? The unpaid balance on a deceased person's credit card has to be inherited by the heirs. Here's your father's will. We'll have it reviewed at the family court, depending on what's written there, but since you spent the money, it's only natural that you should pay it. Alex's face turned pale. His body started to tremble, and he was at a loss for words, facing the reality I had thrust upon him. He had used his father's credit card without even knowing such basic things. How naive. I was looking forward to going to the family court tomorrow. The next day I gathered all the necessary documents and filed for the will's inspection at the family court. It was hard to gather all the documents in one day, but I wanted to know the contents of the will as soon as possible. A few days later, I was notified of the date for the inspection, so Alex and I headed to the family court together. Alex had been downcast for a while, but then he blustered.
The old man had assets too. I can pay off any debts with the inheritance.
Indeed, as Alex said, my husband was a man of considerable assets, with a total worth of over $12 million. He owned countless properties and stocks. Alex knew this and must have planned to steal his father's money. It was infuriating how he could be so lazy yet so cunning. I didn't know what my husband had written in his will, but I hoped Alex would receive a fitting retribution. When we arrived at the family court, the official opened the will. It was just the two of us attending, so the atmosphere was tense.
The testator, Robert Ford, hereby declares the following in this will. Clause 1. I bequeath the following properties to my wife, Megan Ford.
The official read aloud the list of the largest apartments, lands, and stocks owned by my husband. Alex might not understand just by hearing the names and addresses, but I had a good grasp of which apartments and lands were being mentioned. The stocks are all from major companies, promising high returns. With this, I will inherit most of my husband's assets. Even after inheritance tax, the amount is enough that I won't have to work for the rest of my life.
Clause 2. To my eldest son, Alex Ford. I bequeath the following properties.
Upon hearing that he would inherit properties, Alex pumped his fist in the air with a yes at this point. However, I smirked to myself.
Furthermore, to my eldest son, Alex Ford, I also bequeath all of the following financial debts.
Upon hearing the list of debts, Alex immediately froze in his actions.
Debts? I haven't heard anything about that.
Well, your father had debts too, and the money you spent with a credit card counts as debt as well.
What? What does that mean?
It seemed that Alex finally realized the seriousness of the situation. He stood up, ready to confront the official reading the will. Calm down.
How can I calm down? Debts? Why should I have them? But it said I'd also get land and apartments, right? I can offset them with those, right?
Indeed, according to my husband's will, not only debts but also properties were to be acquired by Alex. However, I knew the addresses of the land and apartments. The properties Alex was to inherit were all rundown apartments and worthless rural lands that were not worth much money. On the day we walked together before my husband passed away, he said,
I'll do anything I can.
That must have been about this will. He left almost all of his assets to me and gave Alex worthless properties and debts. From the outside, it might seem like cruel parenting, but given what Alex had done so far, it was a small price. Unfortunately, the land and apartments you will inherit are all worthless. They probably won't even cover your debts if you sell them.
What? You must be joking. What are you going to do about this?
Alex slammed the table. I had the official who had finished reading the will leave. What am I going to do? It's your responsibility. This is a result of you lazing around and misusing your father's money. It's too late to lament now. Alex was taken aback by my argument, seemingly realizing the folly of his ways. Then, unexpectedly, he knelt on the ground and clung to my legs.
Mom, please, I'm begging you, help me. With the assets you inherited, I could easily pay off my debts, right? Please, you're the only one I have left.
I looked down coldly at Alex, who was pathetically clinging to me only now. The Alex who first called me Mom is a different person now. Being called Mom now doesn't fool me. Who do you think is your mother? After defying me and your father all this time, it's too late to rely on me now. You are no longer my son. Whether we have a blood connection or not doesn't matter. I do not acknowledge you as my son. If you understand, don't come back to me ever again." Alex collapsed on the spot, completely devastated. I left the scene briskly. I vowed to cut ties with Alex. Alex did not return home after that. Given the fight we had, it was inevitable. Now that both my husband and Alex are gone, I'm alone in the house, but having Alex around would only make things more difficult, so I'm content being alone now. Thank you for the will. In front of my husband's portrait, I thanked him. I'm filled with loneliness without my husband, but thanks to the assets he left, I won't have to struggle in life ahead. I truly am grateful. I decided to continue my part-time job at the flower shop. I need to keep busy or I'll get too down. In the end, I'm glad I kept working. Later, I heard that Alex started living in one of the dilapidated apartments he inherited. It's located far from the downtown area, taking over an hour one way to commute to school. With a $200,000 debt, he has to work part-time jobs, and because his home is far from school, he seems to have no time to hang out with friends. He works several hours a day, not just at one job, but also at a late-night job. He must be leading a very exhausting life, but I felt no inclination to help him. He brought this upon himself. Right now, I can't think of Alex as my son. Maybe if one day Alex changes his ways and comes to me, I might feel like helping him. Until then, I will enjoy my life alone while grieving about my husband.